On 5 News tonight, the baby boy allowed to die by his own mother. The first nuclear plant for a generation, and Lloyds axes thousands of jobs.
Oh yeah, you're liking the water, aren't you?
1-year-old Noah Sarah Morrison suffered a massive head injury inflicted by his mother's boyfriend. The jury says she allowed it to happen. Her partner's been convicted of murder. The UK's first new nuclear power plant for 20 years looks set to get the green light. Lloyds closes 200 branches and thousands of jobs will go, despite the bank doubling its profits. Also tonight, I'll be joined by the husband of a charity worker who's been detained in Iran. Nazanin Ratcliffe's family is calling on the Foreign Secretary to help bring her home. And how working in an office every day can be as bad for your health as smoking. Welcome to 5 News Tonight. I'm Julian Drucker. He was a drug taker in an abusive relationship with his partner who went on to kill her 13-month-old son, and she allowed it to happen. Today, a jury convicted Harjeep Hunjan of the murder of Noah. He had inflicted multiple injuries on the boy, including a skull fracture which killed him. Noah's mother, Ronnie Taylor Morrison, was found guilty of cruelty and allowing or causing the death to happen. A warning that Layla Hayes' report contains some upsetting details.
Oh yeah, you're liking the water, aren't you?
Noah Sarah Morrison was described in court as a happy, cheerful toddler, but at the age of just 13 months, he was killed in his own home. His mother's boyfriend, 27-year-old Harjeep Hunjan, was today found guilty of murder and cruelty. Noah's mother, 22-year-old Ronnie Taylor Morrison, was cleared of murder, but found guilty of cruelty and causing or allowing her son's death. This was the emergency call last November.
Please, can you hurry up and come? My son isn't breathing. He's been out of his cot and he's not breathing.
Is he awake?
No, he's not breathing!
The couple claimed Noah had injured himself by falling out of his cot at the family home in Luton. He had, in fact, suffered weeks of abuse and died of a massive head injury, which prosecutors said could have been caused by being slammed against a wall. The day before he died, the couple filmed themselves smoking cannabis. Noah's mother can be seen drinking out of a child's Winnie the Pooh cup. The court heard they had a chaotic relationship dominated by alcohol and drugs.
It's the toxic relationship that these two coming together that has caused his death. It's a relationship which is fueled on drugs and cannabis taking, alcohol abuse, some violence, and ultimately this relationship becomes more important to them than 13-month-old Noah, who becomes an inconvenience to them.
2 days after Noah's death, the couple were caught on CCTV shopping before boarding a coach to Scotland, hoping to evade justice. Today, Noah's father issued a statement saying, "When Noah was alive, he made my life happy. It wasn't his job to make me happy, but he did. He did it by just being here. It was good to love Noah. I don't see a lot in my future without him." Noah's mother and her boyfriend will be sentenced tomorrow. A serious case review will now look at any organisations which had contact with Noah and whether any more could have been done to save him. Layla Hayes, 5 News.
Reports from Paris in the last half an hour say that Britain's first nuclear power station for more than 20 years has been given the final go-ahead. If it's confirmed, the plant at Hinkley Point in Somerset will cost £18 billion and take at least 9 years to build. It'll also help create 25,000 jobs. But the huge project has been met with strong opposition, as Simon Vigar reports.
For a project which has yet to get the official go-ahead, they're certainly cracking on with Hinkley C. In the distance, Hinkley A, on the left, is decommissioned. Hinkley B is operational. The scale of the preparatory work is clear from the air. Earthworks and road construction on the Somerset coast before the actual power station can be built. If it gets the final go-ahead, Hinkley C will become the biggest construction site in Europe, with 25,000 people working here, and the final plant will have a staff of 900. In nearby Bridgewater, they're used to Hinkley.
Well, it doesn't bother me. That one's been there for years, hasn't it?
People are looking forward to the jobs and everything it's going to bring to the infrastructure, so I think, yeah, probably 50-50.
It's 900 new jobs, so...
I think that's brilliant. I really do. I think that's going to obviously give a lot more people in this area jobs.
Energy analysts say nuclear is essential. Solar and wind will not be enough.
Well, nuclear power is low carbon. It doesn't depend on the wind blowing or the sun being out as to whether we can run our transport systems or pump water into our homes or run our hospitals and the like. So those are very clear advantages. On the other hand, very expensive to build, which is why you need this long-term pricing deal.
The upside to the deal is that French and Chinese investors foot the £18 billion bill for Hinkley C. They're doing that because the British government has guaranteed a price per megawatt for 35 years. And that, say the protesters, is the downside. On current estimates, consumers will have to pay £29 billion to subsidise that guarantee, on top of power bills. The local protest group says the policy is wrong and the financing is wrong.
Our government are giving a horrendous blank cheque of taxpayers' money to the French government. Our children in the future are going to be tied and locked in for 35 years into paying 3 times the price of what we're paying at the moment.
The protesters have not given up, but tonight it seems Hinkley C's groundbreaking deal is on. Simon Viger, 5 News, Hinkley C.
One by one, Britain's banks continue to disappear from the high street. Today, Lloyds, which is still part owned by the taxpayer, announced plans to close another 200 branches and cut 3,000 jobs. The move is partly, it says, because of the economic problems caused by Brexit, but also because more of us are switching to banking online. And as Peter Lane found out in Sheffield, that's little consolation to some customers.
Last customer out and the doors locked, but keep watching. This Sheffield branch of Lloyds closed today under a previous round of cuts, just as more closures and job losses were announced. The bank blames the Brexit effect of lower interest rates and changing customer behaviour. As we filmed, just seconds later, the first customer arrived to find no entry.
An inconvenience, massive inconvenience. Just have to go out of my way to get to a branch now.
Are you sorry to see this go?
Absolutely, yeah.
Are you angry?
Yeah.
How do you do your banking?
Online, mostly.
You physically walk into banks anymore?
No, never.
Just along the street at the Retro Fairy Boutique, there's nothing retro about still needing to pay business cash in, so that might mean leaving Lloyds.
I only opened the bank account myself not too long ago and it wasn't brought to my attention. If I'd have known that it was about to close down a few months later, I wouldn't have opened that account.
Disgruntled customers, but a bleaker picture for staff. 200 branches were already closing and now another 200 will go.
Lloyds Banking Group have cut tens of thousands of jobs over the last few years. This is a battered and beleaguered workforce, and there seems to be no end in sight for the jobs cull.
Lloyds say that since the start of this year, the number of customers walking into their branches has fallen by 15%. The big rise continues to be digital banking. In the last 2 years, the number of Lloyds customers banking online is up from 10 million to 12 million. And within that, the number banking by mobile phone has risen from 5 million to 7 million. Given those figures, just how much are the closures influenced by Brexit?
Quite frankly, it's quite easy to pin things on that at the moment. I think this is actually a much longer trend that we've seen over the past decade. Around half of the bank branches in the UK have closed over the last 10 years, so this is really nothing new. But what we could see is the Brexit speeding up that trend now.
The trend is undeniable. Once a high street fixture, the bank branch has never looked so exposed. Peter Lane, 5 News.
Police have said there's not enough evidence to pursue claims of sexual assault against Chris Evans. Earlier this month, they confirmed they were looking into an allegation that was made against the BBC presenter in May. It related to a supposed incident involving one woman in the 1990s. Jeremy Corbyn has been given a major boost in his bid to be re-elected as Labour leader. A judge has ruled he should automatically appear on the ballot when party members vote in September. His opponents had claimed he'd need the backing of 50 MPs, which analysts have said he'd struggle to get. The Pope has stumbled and fallen as he arrived for Mass in Poland. Pope Francis tripped on a step in front of millions of people live on TV before being helped to his feet by aides. He was unhurt and carried on with the ceremony. And German Chancellor Angela Merkel has refused to change her policy on immigrants in the wake of recent terrorist attacks. She's faced calls to go back on plans to take in more than 1 million refugees. But she says Germany will stick to its principles of giving shelter to those in need. The husband of a charity worker who's been detained for more than 100 days in Iran says she has lost a dangerous amount of weight and is virtually unable to walk. Richard Ratcliffe has now written to Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, calling on him to intervene in his wife's case. I'll be speaking to him in just a moment, but first let's remind ourselves about their story. Nazanin Ratcliffe works for a human rights charity, but one which does not operate in Iran. She was arrested on April the 3rd at the end of a holiday, visiting her parents with her young daughter. She's been detained for 115 days now. The first 45 days were in solitary confinement. Iran says it's over a serious investigation involving national security. Nazanin has had no access to a lawyer and has only been allowed to see her daughter 5 times. Now, Richard, thanks for joining us. It must be a really difficult time for your family. Your father-in-law saw her yesterday, didn't he? How did she seem?
Yes, so that's right. So my father-in-law and mother-in-law and Gabriella, our daughter, went to see Nazanin yesterday. My mother-in-law wasn't allowed in. She was made to wait outside the prison. I think Nazanin is... it's hard to tell exactly how she seemed because they're very careful what they'll say on the phone. So they said she seemed the same as before. I think it's always good that she's able to see Gabriella and to be able to play with her for a little bit. But in terms of her sort of physical condition, we're not able to get an independent doctor in to explore, and it clearly is a very tough time.
She just looks more frail.
It's definitely much weaker. Definitely, when she came out of solitary confinement, she wasn't able to walk without getting blackouts. Had a very poor diet, and her hair was falling out. I think her diet has improved since she's been transferred to Tehran, but no medical confirmation on her actual condition. The majority of the pressure is psychological, so she'll be sort of intensively interrogated and isolated. Then as a reward, if she cooperates, she'll be allowed to see her daughter. So that's more where the pressure is, and then that has a physical toll.
And how is your daughter, Gabriella?
Well, she's obviously too young to understand what's happening, so she tends to experience things emotionally from the emotions of everyone else. So when, for instance, that Nazanin was charged 2 weeks ago, and on that day, obviously, the family were devastated. And then she just became very difficult and wouldn't eat and wouldn't sleep, and that's her way of experiencing it. She's obviously with people who love her. She's with her grandparents, so she's safe. But I mean, she's in a new country, had to learn a new language, and it's difficult without your mum.
And you've spoken to Nazanin once on the phone.
Yeah.
How was that? And I know it was difficult to even do that, wasn't it?
She was just very upset. And obviously, when I'm in my sort of campaigning mode, absolutely. And then when I had the actual human experience of just talking to her, and she cried and I cried, and yeah, it's been going on for so long, and there's no charges, and it just anything she can do to get out, anything I can do to get, it's not clear what will work. Yeah, so she was just quite broken. This has been going on for so long. We've actually had a change of Foreign Secretary. What would you like to see Boris Johnson do? Well, to take a personal interest in the case. I mean, to this point, no British politician has expressed any criticism of how Nazanin's been treated. I'd like that to happen. I think it is extraordinary as a situation. And also that, if you compare the way Britain's treated this case to there's a phenomenon where a number of other Westerners have been taken by so dual nationals, so there'll be Western and Iranians, but taken by Canadians and Americans. The way those governments have reacted has been much more strident. So there are things we could learn from the way that the Americans have responded. The Canadian Foreign Minister has met the family of Farah. There's more that could be done.
The Foreign Office says they've received your letter, they will respond formally. They said they're concerned, but the wheels are in motion, but you feel they're perhaps not doing as much as they could at the moment?
I think they're certainly doing things behind the scenes that they're not mentioning, and diplomacy is quiet. But certainly there's more they could do, and there's a lot more they could do publicly. Yeah, I think there have been some tiny movements in that they changed the travel advice for dual nationals for Iran, saying it's not necessarily safe to go to Iran, which was a big change, and that wasn't done under the previous government. So that is a change that's happened, and there's certainly more that could be done. We hope you have some good news soon, and we're all thinking of you and your family. Thank you very much indeed, Richard. Thanks for that. Thank you. Coming up on 5 News tonight, rage on the railways. New figures reveal the state of Britain's overcrowded trains. And why, if you don't do enough of this, doing too much of this can send you to an early grave. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News Tonight. The search for new antibiotics to help fight superbugs like MRSA has made a breakthrough, and it turns out what they were looking for was right under, or rather in, our noses. A drug has been developed using bacteria found in people's nostrils. Professor Jodie Lindsay from St George's University of London is an MRSA specialist and is here to explain more. This discovery was made in Germany, wasn't it? What exactly have they found?
So what they've found is that there's different types of bacteria that live in your nose, and they're competing with each other. They're competing for nutrients and food. It's a bit like an ecosystem going on in your nose. And in order for some bacteria to survive, they have to kill off other bacteria. So what they've done is found one of the types of bacteria that can kill off Staph aureus and MRSA, and they've isolated how it does that, and it's by producing a new type of antibiotic.
This could help in the fight against superbugs like MRSA, couldn't it? I mean, this has long been a problem, hasn't it?
It is. So one of the things that we really need are new ways or better ways to stop colonisation with Staph aureus and MRSA in our nose, because that's the reservoir of the bacteria that go on to cause infection. So if we can clear that colonisation in the nose, that would be really beneficial. And this is a new type of antibiotic that may, in the future, have a role to play in doing that.
And MRSA is such a scourge, isn't it, in hospitals and that kind of thing? I mean, anything that would help battle that, I guess.
Absolutely. So we've had a little bit of success in recent years of reducing the MRSA rates, but it is still a problem that we have to worry about, and globally it's a very important problem.
People will be surprised perhaps to hear this is in our noses. Could other antibiotics be found in the body, do you think?
I think that this is an untapped reservoir of antibiotics, so it is possible that we will find a lot more. This idea that bacteria compete with each other, it really makes a lot of sense, and so there potentially is many other things that we could look for.
And do you think there'll be still some time until this is developed into a drug for medical use?
Definitely. So this is really only the first step. There's a lot of work still to be done to develop it, to manufacture it, to put it through clinical trials, to make sure that it's safe. There's still a lot of things that need to be done. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of investment, but, there is the potential.
It is a medical marvel, isn't it, once again? Thank you so much for that, Professor Jodie Lindsay. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks. Earlier this week, we told you about how unnecessarily expensive some train journeys can be. Well, a report today has revealed how overcrowded they often are too. The two worst services are between Brighton and Bedford and between Glasgow and Manchester. In some cases, trains cram in twice the number of the people they were designed for. Charlotte Grant has some passengers' stories.
Sardines in a can. If you can imagine, look at sardines in the cans, it looks like that. There's not much space at all, not much air.
Chock-a-block all the way down the corridor, no room for anybody. Not nice people who spend a lot of money to stand all the way.
It happens all the time, like it's consistently bad in terms of overcrowding. So yeah, not really the nicest environment to be in, to be honest.
It's the everyday reality of train travel. Unbearable levels of overcrowding, with many trains cramming in twice as many people as they should be carrying. For some time, Southern Rail Services has been criticised, with passengers around London and the South East suffering delays, cancellations and overcrowding. But today, figures reveal it's a nationwide problem, with Manchester and Glasgow among the hotspots for the worst overcrowding. And the number of us using trains is only growing. So much so that the volume of journeys people are making is now at the highest level since the 1920s. That doesn't mean the experience is getting any better.
It's one of those services where at peak hours you send the smallest train, so you try to work out how to find a space in the smallest train, which is already packed by the time it gets here.
It's the kids' holiday, so this is actually quite quiet. So you're lucky if you even got on with your equipment today.
I have to find my way in normally to get on. So if there was a few more carriages or a bit more frequency, it would be so much easier.
Government figures show some services had to carry an extra 200 passengers, while on other trains, during the morning rush hour, 1 in 3 passengers was forced to stand. Today, the group that represents the rail industry was apologetic.
We as an industry are doing everything we can to introduce more carriages, improved carriages, air-conditioned carriages, so that there are more seats, particularly in the peak period.
But until then, with demand for train services only set to increase, passenger experience seems unlikely to improve. Charlotte Grant, 5 News.
If you just come home from a long day at the office or you know someone who's about to, then you might want to listen to this. A major study has found that sitting down for at least 8 hours a day could increase your chances of dying younger by as much as 60%.
Physical inactivity kills more than 5 million people a year, and it causes heart disease, diabetes, strokes, and lots of diseases as well.
But researchers say an hour of brisk walking or cycling spread over a day is enough to combat the dangers of 8 hours sitting in the office. So Minnie has been finding out what people think.
I mean, sure, you can get away with half an hour a day, but I think saying, why don't you do an hour a day, can't hurt to do a little bit more.
Do about 15,000 steps a day, so that's 6 or 7 miles.
Do you think it's easy to fit in an hour's exercise a day? Is that an easy thing to do, or do you struggle with that?
I did it first until someone said to me, if your health's a priority, it shouldn't be hard.
I'm joined now by Loretta Johnny, a plus-size fitness instructor. You lost 7 stone yourself, incredible, and you specialise in getting overweight people to exercise. Yes. Do you find a lot of people sitting down for 8 hours a day?
Oh, definitely. People of all sizes and backgrounds, they're not even aware they're doing it, that they're sitting down and not being active. So it does have a great effect on their muscles, on their body. And
an hour a day of exercise, though, sounds quite a lot for people, doesn't it?
You can break it up so that you can make it, easy and accessible. You can walk to work. You can take a few more stairs. You can take the stairs instead of the lift. You can maybe have a kick around at lunchtime with your work colleagues. There's ways you can integrate that hour and break it down and do it during the day.
So it doesn't have to be playing a sport, going to the gym, as you're saying. It could be.
If you can, it would be brilliant. But you could take small steps to, and do something you like, do something that's fun.
And is that how you did it? I mean, what's your own secret?
I had to. Oh, definitely. I mean, I couldn't walk very far. I was huge. I couldn't hardly move. I had limited mobility, so I had to take small steps. And I started by walking and doing non-weight-bearing exercises like cycling. And I had to just believe that I can do it, set some goals and do one thing at a time. And I quickly saw changes.
And how long did it take to lose 7 stone? How quickly?
It's taken and still taking years. It's a journey. I've put weight on, I've taken weight off, and I've had to look at what the root cause was behind it, why I was overeating and comfort eating. So I had to tackle that as well.
You've brought to our desk the kind of things people could have on their desk.
Possibly,
at work.
Yes.
I mean, just describe what we've got here.
Well, I've actually got a resistance band here. Would you like to show you some exercises? Yeah. And what you can do is stretch that out and back a few times.
You have to have room in the office to do that, yeah.
From the side.
Yeah.
But the first thing you must do is definitely check with a doctor and get the all clear to exercise. So this is a row. Yeah. This is good for your biceps and your triceps. And you can do some
Yeah, see, we could all do this sitting at my desk.
Nobody would notice.
And the dumbbell as well, more traditional.
Again,
I mean, you could just be.
So you can take a weight and lift it to the side, lift it laterally. Again, you could do some walking and running at your desk. Yeah. So there's lots of different things you can do.
And do you think people will listen to health warnings like this? This thing about dying
I think people know, but I think this is definitely a reminder and a warning and a wake-up call and a call for action. Definitely.
It definitely is. Thank you so much for that, and thank you very much for those tips. We will follow them. Thank you very much indeed, Loretta. Thank you. Finally, a heartwarming tale of reunion. Back in April 1994, at just 2 hours old, Kiran Sheikh was dumped in a phone box in East London by her mum. She was found all wrapped up by a man who immediately called 999 and handed her to the emergency services. He was told he couldn't stay in contact, but he never stopped looking for her. And then one day, she went out to find him. Olivia Kinsley picks up the story.
Kiran has been waiting for this moment for a lifetime. She's about to meet the man who saved her when she was just 2 hours old. In 1994, Joe Campbell found her in a phone box in East London in the middle of the night. Then she was just 2 hours old. Now, aged 22, they can hug for the first time.
So good to see you.
Today at his home, Joe told 5 News the story of how he found her.
I was approaching the phone box. I saw what I thought was an empty chip wrapping. As I got closer, I realized it was a little baby. A peaceful child. She wasn't crying. She was moving arms and legs, you know, but she was gurgling.
While he waited for the police, he gave her a name.
April, yes. Simply because she was found on the very last day of April.
He never stopped thinking about that little girl, and she was thinking about him too.
I always wondered, especially when I read that he had, given me presents and cards on my birthdays, I thought, oh my goodness, he must be so amazing. Always wondered what he was like, what he looked like, and what kind of person he was, all the time.
Finally, she made a public appeal to find him. When Joe saw the photos, he made contact, and now here they are.
Okay, I'm not her birth father, but she's my daughter.
Of course.
Because from day one, when I found her, I wanted to adopt her. I was told no, but I never gave up hope.
Hope is something Kiran still holds to, that her birth mum might see this and get in touch. Finding Joe has already shown her that dreams can come true. Olivia Kinsley, 5 News.
What a great story. That is it from us. Sean Welby has the weather next, and Chloe Potter has updates throughout the evening. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.